The religious. Oh,
So like we were talking about like a sense of identity and like how most people like we have this idea that when you're an adult, just to fucking contextualize the conversation, we have this idea that when you're like 18, you're an adult or you should be an adult. And like that means that you have to take on adult responsibilities. You're supposed to know something about your identity, or you're supposed to expect to go off somewhere and learn about your identity in a very like I want to say a very like structured way. So like either you take a gap year if you have the economic means, or you're expected to go to college and do all that self-discovery there. And I'm like, I don't think that it's fair to thrust all of that on everyone at age 18. And I mean, you were saying like when you think about when you were in your 20s, because now like you're what 31?
31. Yeah.
Right. I forgot if you were 30 or 31. My bad. Like it's been too long. But yeah, you were talking about how when you were in your 20s, you felt like you had to act like an adult to certain people, and then you were talking about how now when you reflect back on the types of characters you would like to play in certain games like RPGs, you basically become that kind of person. What do you mean?
Well, when I say that, like the type of person that I found that I'm comfortable with now, like right now, is like the kind of character I would like to play in. I don't know. Let's say Dragon Age Origins, the first game.
Right.
And yeah, there's like rogue, mage, and warrior. And then I picked the rogue naturally because if you want to talk about game mechanics, like I like the idea of finding critical hits and and how they would describe like, oh, the rogue always hits like the weak spots and all that. So, and they're really observant. So then, those were kinds of qualities that I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I wish I was like that. And in fact, like the path to become that was like all this philosophy and being observant and all that stuff. So then, in my brain, it was like, oh, that's kind of like a rogue character. Like things are always kind of shifting in their minds, and they kind of think that people, while they might have like a good guard, like people are always, they can be open to suggestion depending. And being that I was in a customer service job for 11 years and still in one now, just a different place.
Just a different one.
Yeah, it's like all those skills, all those applications, like they come to me natural, like almost second nature now. It's just like, I need to add more knowledge, and then my brain just figures out the rest about how to say it. Before I used to like always be in my head and plan out what I was gonna say, but then if let's say an unforeseen thing occurs and then like a dialogue wheel, and I was just completely stumped when it didn't go the way that my brain imagined it.
Like when you didn't perceive the dialogue options that were pre-planned in your head.
Basically, yeah, because we were playing Mass Effect and Dragon Age.
Right.
Yeah, BioWare really popularized that.
Yeah, which is why I think like the dialogue wheel in Mass Effect, where you pick like sort of a broad sentiment, in a weird way, it helps my gamer brain deal more with potential ambiguity.
Oh yeah.
Instead of there being a line, right? And then a line, and then a line, because if none of those things happen, like, I was like, well, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah, exactly.
And then when Mass Effect came, and I realized I had no control over what Shepard actually spoke, right? Sometimes you would just get the option, like, be aggressive or be calm. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, that's interesting, because I never really thought about, like, my relationship to my own identity versus like the characters I played.
Yeah. There was something else I was gonna add as
And then
well. Um,
after you're done, I might have to ask you like what kind of characters you notice I play and why you think that. Because I've literally never thought about this way. But
oh, that's interesting. I thought, yeah, that's pretty much how I look at most of life.
yeah. So continue with what you were gonna say, and then we'll do that. Because like, dude, I just wow, my brain is just like, fuck, dude. How have you never? How have you
Yeah,
never thought of that? Okay, yeah,
well, yeah, one of the things that I would do with like games and all that is like being a shy and sheltered person in my earlier years and stuff.
yeah.
It was just unimaginable to me that I could become that kind of person because I had this idea that we're all kind of static.
Right, dude.
But then once, as I kept getting older and going through different experiences and seriously thinking like, oh, what's my place in the universe and those bigger questions, and I found that the more I let go of this idea that I'm static, the more it became easier to not only be comfortable with myself, but be comfortable talking to other people, even if at first they seemed like, irritable or angry or something like that. All that superficial stuff.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, like with that experience, with that change, like there came times where like, I was getting angry more often or more irritable because I was repressing less inside.
Right.
So it
So
was
now
like
that's
it was like accumulated negative, emotion or energy, however you want to put it.
yeah,
So then,
yeah.
um, and then once all of that went away, um, it's like, well, I'm pretty decent at talking to people, and I can, people just say things that I tend to pick up on. Like, they mention something offhand, and then I can just bring it up later, and they're a little surprised, and then they just tell you more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny that like the way they set up video game protagonists, like you are pretty much in a listener role, and that's how I related back, in real life.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah, which I think is kind of an underutilized thing in games. Like, you could, because all the conversations are pre-written in a game, but you could easily apply it to like actual real life, even if it is dynamic.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. That's kind of my experience and how I apply it.
That's funny, dude. Cause like, yeah. So the way that I normally thought about who I chose, it was very, very simple to me. It was like, first of all, what do I want to look at? Like, do I want to be my idealized self, or do I want to be like some crappy teenager who looks at girl butt all day?
Yeah.
And then like that was just the aesthetic part. And then the other thing was like I don't know, for me, like
Mm-hmm.
I would always play like the good ending first.
Yeah.
Like to play even now to play like if I know the game is a moral game in the same way that Mass Effect or Knights of the Old Republic is, I still feel bad for playing the
Yeah.
dark side first. It's so weird, but that's why I was wondering
What kind of characters?
like why you think what characters do you see me play most often, and why do you think I choose those? Because I've never thought about it that way.
Hmm. Well, I remember, like in Dragon Age, for example, you liked that warrior mage hybrid, that class, even if it was a little broken in the first game.
Yeah, it was so not fleshed out in the first game.
Because you couldn't wear like certain armor, you couldn't wield certain weapons.
And you couldn't do certain spells with any weapon you wanted, you had to have your wand equipped, which was like pointless, um, or your staff rather.
Right.
And
Well, I thought about that mage warrior type, like that kind of fitting you, because like with the mage, you know, the Gandalf type of shit,
that's weird.
like you always come off as authoritative, like with your when you talk about your experiences or what you researched and stuff, and you know, wizards and all that. They have a lot of knowledge in their head, and they've lived through harsh experiences, because magic, you know, in fantasy worlds and magic, like really good stories about magic
Yeah.
talk about the consequences of using it. And so being a mage or a wizard, you've had to sacrifice a lot for the sake of gaining more power or more of the ability to like help out people. And, you know, you've had to go through that in your own personal life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the warrior side of it being, you know, like your early martial arts training and all that, and your studies into Bushido and how to like, you know, have a fighting spirit, but then channel it in more constructive, productive ways.
Which is
So that's what I think when I think of like the warrior type of, you know, archetype
yeah.
in RPGs. So that's the kind of character I see you going. If there had to be, you know, one side more dominant than the other, like, you know, mage over warrior or warrior over mage, like it'd probably be more mage.
Interesting. Why do you think that?
Only because like you're able to see different perspectives when you have, you know, the calmness and all that, and you're able to keep your cool. That's what I think of a wizard. Like they're in good control of their emotions. Or when, you know, when we were younger, like they could hide it at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, which you're really good at.
Which is funny because now I don't like hiding my emotions.
Yeah. But like naturally your face is plain.
I know.
Yeah.
It's funny because my my brother-in-law, because you know this might be on YouTube. My brother-in-law commented sarcastically, "You're really good at hiding your facial expressions," because I wasn't at all. And I was like, "Well, right now, no, because I don't give a shit. I don't want to hide how I'm feeling. If I felt like I needed to, you would have no idea what was on my mind."
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
so that's
zero.
Yeah.
Like less than zero. You'd be like, "Oh, he's fine," until one day he just blew up. And no, that means I wasn't fine.
Right.
But you wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there any other kind of RPG character I tend to play that you think adds like a different way of looking at my personality and shit?
I was gonna say, like, if we're not gonna use fantasy, like kind of like a detective archetype.
All right.
I kind of put myself in there too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because there can be different kinds of detectives, I think, not just like the Sherlock type.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, kind of like noir, but without the heavy drinking and stuff.
like what kind of okay, so if there's subtypes of detective, what kind of detective are you? If you put yourself into that archetype.
Kind of like research and like developing relationships with people. You know, just trying to get into their head or something like that.
Is there a fictional detective to you that best embodies that?
Uh,
I know that's a hard
Yeah, not off the top of my head right now. I was just thinking Disco Elysium because you are a detective and you can be whatever, whoever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could be really rational or you can be really eccentric. Um,
It's weird you should say that because I get really uncomfortable when people tell me that like I'm the closest thing to Sherlock Holmes that they know in real life.
yeah.
Like, because I've had zero interest in ever being in law enforcement or anything adjacent, and like I don't actively try to do anything to emulate Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Like
Freaking,
nothing.
yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of more archetype examples than just fantasy.
Like it's funny, right? Because when you were talking about being the rogue
Mm-hmm.
type of
Per
like real life character, right?
yeah.
Um, uh, like it's funny because you recently like figured out that you lean more toward like INTP or no INTJ versus
INTJ.
INTP. My bad, I mixed them up. Um,
Yeah.
so for a long time, I basically think you were masking as an INTP because there
Mm-hmm.
were aspects of your the way your mind worked that you didn't like.
Yeah.
And the more comfortable you got with yourself, the more you realize like I actually do this all the time and it serves a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I figured out what it's good for in a way that's useful to me instead of just using it to hide, like
Right.
this feels more like me. And so like going back to that, it's weird, right? Because to me, like if I had to describe you in terms of like a fantasy character type, it would be like the rogue that everyone's heard of, but nobody's ever really like identified.
Yeah.
And then like one day they just decide that like let's say there's an invasion of like some kind of
Mon
some kind of monster like the blight or whatever from Dragon
yeah.
Age, right?
Dark spot.
Right. Or like the Urukai or something.
Yeah.
Like you're like the rogue who up and all of a sudden decides like, oh well shit, I guess I should help these people now. And then not only do you start like telling the world who you are and what you've done,
Mm-hmm.
but you like actively decide you're gonna use that status to like lead an army.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that.
Right, because the thing about like INTJ to me
Mm-hmm.
is like um you have I don't know, like if I had to think about it in terms of like I shouldn't do this and it's not healthy to do, but
But
if I had to think about it in terms of like comparing my Sherlockness to yours, you have a greater capacity to be Sherlock classic, the Sherlock from the Conan Doyle stories.
oh, the very first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sherlock classic, right? Where you will catch minor details that I don't even give a shit about,
Yeah.
but they're important. And once you point them out, I'm like, well, okay, fuck, I didn't care about that, but
Yeah, like seeing how it all works together.
what does that mean? Now that I have that piece of information, like then I can process it and be like, oh well, this is how that changes it. But you're more like Sherlock Classic than I am.
Yeah. Uh yeah,
And
it's funny that you should when you were talking about the rogue becomes the leader and stuff. You know what's funny? The third Dragon Age game, Inquisition, which I kind of want to play, but then I don't. What happened is I got halfway through the game and then my save file got corrupted.
I remember.
Yeah, so I was just bummed because it was actually getting interesting, but
Right.
It's a pain in the butt to get to the story missions because you have to do a bunch of
The
crappy
growth
side
is-
missions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, that's why I don't want to replay it again. But anyway, I had picked like a dwarf rogue, and then like, dude, I gave him like a black beard, and then he had this kind of like, he had some black hair, and it was like some rocker hair because one side of his head was shavy, the other side was all long hair.
You mean like right now?
Yeah. That's so funny because I never thought about it until just now when as we're talking.
You are your rogue dwarf right now.
Yeah, but it's funny because later in the game you do become the leader of an inquisition.
That's funny, dude.
Yeah. So I don't know, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it really is because, like, dude, it's funny because, well, I think we both grew up playing video games,
Yeah.
so it was really easy to like. I think that's why, like, for example, Joseph Campbell's so easy to understand
Mm-hmm.
for us because, like, when I would play a game, like, say I was playing Final Fantasy VIII in high school, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to be Squall. I wanted to be the hero. I wanted to be the dude that like saved people. I wanted to feel. Aside from that, I wanted to feel important.
Yeah.
And I think like everybody to some extent wants to feel um, like they're the hero of their own story. And I think Joseph Campbell believed that.
Yep.
And now, you know, you see like videos about like how that's inherently narcissistic and why you're not the hero of your own life. And I mean, there's some good points to that, but I think they missed the point because a lot of that type of argumentation, like, what I hear from it is like, your life isn't like a story because there's so much mundane crap in the middle.
Yeah.
And like, all you're really remembering are the high points. But I'm like, that's not the
The
that
point.
was the point of what Joseph Campbell was saying.
No. It was just, find yourself and then how do you relate to the much larger world?
Right. And then what sense of mission does that now give you?
Yeah. I mean,
When
you could take it overboard and completely miss that point, but
Right.
that's part of the growth process.
And as kids, we would have.
Yeah.
If we had read Joseph Campbell as children, we would have completely missed the point and probably been crazy.
Yeah.
Because we were playing a lot of video games.
Yeah. So do you want me to read this while recording or do you want to end it?
Yeah, dude. Like, I don't know. But this was pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
I might just label this as like identity in gaming or what identity through gaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like I do think games are useful for figuring out who the hell you are. Like,
Yeah. Not just for escape, but because I've talked to a lot of gamers who, they relate, or, I've read articles like they relate to those characters, even ones that are already authored.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so one because this. Why do you think I always play the light side first?
Because you got a hero's complex.
What the hell is that even? The hell is
Well,
that?
no, like always in the light side stuff. Like you're helping people out who are stuck in a rut, like NPCs and the way their stories are written.
Yeah.
But KOTOR, for example, there were a lot of characters that either they owed hella money to a crime lord, or like they had a abusive husband, or just trying to make it. They're trying to survive, and
It's funny because I remember a couple games where they put like an abusive relationship in there, and the first thing I did was go kill the abusive dude.
yeah, yeah.
Or
Well, I
like,
think it just kind of reflects your values. Like, I see you more as like a vigilante hero rather than lawful good.
I'm freaking chaotic good. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. Man, yeah, that's pretty cool. If this does go up on YouTube, I might do more of these. I might not. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure everything out. But if it is on YouTube, I hope you guys enjoyed it. But I'm going to stop recording now, so I'll see y'all later.
All right.